As was mentioned, so my name is Karl Surmacz. I'm representing McLaren Applied Technologies. Um, and the reason I'm here is that we have a partnership with the Oxford University Medical School, where we sort of work together to sort of through early stage product research, where through Oxford as a clinical partner and McLaren as a technology partner, we sort of work together to develop products. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those initiatives today. So my background is as a mathematical modeler. Now the trendy term is data scientist. So as was said, a bit of a different perspective, hopefully. So in terms of the technology side of things, what our interest as McLaren. So McLaren Applied Technologies is the technology arm of the McLaren group, so known for Formula One racing and automotive. We also have a technology company as part of that, developing data-driven products in healthcare, transport, and motorsport. We're about 400 people and growing all the time. In terms of the group that I work with, I guess our interest tends to be around modeling, simulation, data analytics, where we look to use those techniques to characterize, optimize, and control systems with a view to sort of optimizing their performance. So I think you apply to motor cars, mechanical objects, and humans, and potentially those things interacting all together. We also have a great interest in sort of the end-to-end data processing sort of pipelines associated with those things. So it's really interesting to hear about some of the discussions around efficient data acquisition, battery life, and that sort of thing. So that's an area of interest for us in particular, but it's not something I'm going to talk about. So with the section being about wearables, sort of wearable technology. So why is that of interest to us in particular in a healthcare context? So I think there's two main reasons. So the first one is, as has already been mentioned a few times, so healthcare is becoming increasingly personalised, and there's a drive to make sort of healthcare and treatment as personalised as possible. So wearable technology clearly is one way to do that. So from a modelling perspective, if you're looking to understand how a system works, you can create a model about that, and start off by understanding how your system works, create a model, enhance that with data that's collected in the field. So you can only achieve sort of personalization or sort of more targeted modeling and more targeted results if you're able to collect data in the field, whether it's from a race car or from a human being. So for us, we don't I guess make wearable technology. We're interested in harnessing wearable technology to create more personalized models in a healthcare context. And the second thing, which is something that has been touched on elsewhere, again, is around patient engagement itself. So we've heard sort of passive, active monitoring mentioned a couple of times. We really see wearable technology and sort of sensor technology in the field as a way to engage patients in their treatment, and engagement itself we see as a metric of interest. So you could make an argument, if you're able to keep patient engagement high and quantify that and measure that throughout the care process, if you're able to keep that high, then you're sort of halfway to solving the problem. So from an analytics and modelling perspective, the question is, how far along this sort of arrow here can you get? How personal can you make things? As has been talked about already, there's a sort of data set size challenge there. Also, depending on the complexity of the model that you're interested in, might sort of limit how far along you're able to go there. So from a sort of healthcare perspective, what are we interested in? So in partnership with Oxford University, we are developing effectively data products, but we're interested in this sort of the whole pathway view across different therapy areas. So we believe that point solutions within the sort of health, sort of the clinical pathway won't have the impact that joined up solutions will. So the types of things that we're looking at, using wearable and sort of at-home monitoring to enhance risk stratification, sort of early on in the care pathway, pre and sort of post-operative, as I said, patient engagement, measuring engagement in recovery programs. So one example that I'll talk a little bit more detail about is around physiotherapy. So if you can measure someone's engagement, a patient's engagement in a sort of physiotherapy program in their orthopedic rehabilitation, then you might be able to make a more targeted intervention in a way that is sort of gives the best outcome. In surgery itself, so we have we'll talk a little bit more detail around whether you can gain insights from surgical processes and the procedures going on there in order to better inform either sort of the risk stratification models or post-operative care. I've mentioned engagement. I said I guess the other side to that coin is around compliance. So these two things sort of go hand in hand, right? So if someone isn't able to comply, they're more likely to become disengaged. So using wearable technology to measure compliance in a sort of, particularly in sort of post-operative care is one of the things that we're interested in. So I'm going to pick a few of the initiatives that we're working on with Oxford, which as you'll see sit along this pathway, and go into a bit more detail on each of them. And this is in chronological order, so automatically built into my talk. It's from sort of past through to future. It's almost as if I planned it that way. So the first engagement that we started with Oxford was around using wearable technology to monitor surgical procedures. So this is actually at the level of a prototype product now that we're looking to take to market jointly with Oxford. And so the basis, the challenge posed to us was that how can we better ensure that surgical trainees and surgical professionals are progressing along the sort of the training curve that is required for them to become good surgeons. So we're working with the group of Professor Johnny Rees, using wearable technology to monitor surgical trainees, and so basically to sort of show that the product that we have in mind delivers statistically significant outcomes. We're able to demonstrate that by giving surgical trainees real-time feedback on how they're performing, we're able to give a statistically significantly improved learning curve, and we've been able to show that improvement transfers to the operating theatre as well. So as I said, this is something that we're looking to take to market jointly with Oxford, and we're some way along the process that was outlined earlier. Oh, that's not worked, has it? Okay. So I talked a little bit about patient engagement earlier as something that we're very interested in. So we're working again with one of the research groups in the medical school around using patient engagement pre and post operative in urology. So these are the types of conditions and operations that are being considered here are typically quite invasive, quite debilitating, and so a key decision in this process is about whether a patient is actually fit and suitable to have the surgery. And so we're using at-home monitoring combined with engagement with the patient, first through the clinician, then eventually through sort of patient-facing applications, to motivate them to improve their fitness, so that they will eventually receive a better outcome at the end of the process. So we're currently we're embarking on a trial with the university to show that the preoperative patient engagement leads to a statistically significant improvement in the patient outcomes. Another initiative that we're looking at around the sort of care pathway optimization is around developing simulation models to simulate and model simulate and model the care pathway itself, with a view to using population data um, to, um, to optimize a patient's flow through the pathway. This is a project that we're working in collaboration with OneView, who are also here today, and I'm sure they'll cover it in more detail than I will later in one of the streams later on today. So some of the potential applications here, so decision support tools for clinicians around optimization of care within a pathway. You can then start to look at resource and patient prioritization, pathway redesign. I guess the reason I've left this in is that although it's not initially tied to wearable technology, it sort of, for me, indicates that need to be able for if wearable technologies to be effective in healthcare, to be able to tie it to the other parts of the healthcare process. I think one of the challenges here is if you are to use wearable technology to enhance this and to give these models more clout effectively, how do you tie it back to the how do you make the link between the different data sets and so on? So so that's something that is relatively early stage and sort of one of the I guess one of the projects for the near future for us. And then finally, the newest project on our horizon is we're just in the process of kicking off, is around using body-worn sensors to effectively measure compliance to rehabilitation plans. So we're again working with Johnny Rees, looking at predominantly shoulder orthopedic patients, but then extending to other joints, using wearable sensors based around the joint, and the effectiveness of using sort of dynamics models of the joints to be able to characterize how someone is recovering in their either pre or post-operative rehabilitation. So again, can you first of all quantify how that improvement is being made, and then secondly, if you are able to coach and give feedback to your patients based on how they're doing, similar to the surgical training exercise in one way, being able to give them feedback and then being able to sort of coach them to improve their recovery curve, and then also to identify when patients aren't recovering at the rate that they should be. So that was I guess a quick whiz through the different engagements, and hopefully you can see how they fit along the sort of the overall care pathway and what we're trying to do and what McLaren Applied Technologies brings to the collaboration. And yeah, as I said, yeah, it's been a great conference so far. I'm looking forward to hearing more about what else is going on. So thanks for your time.